Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. First weather graphic. Hazardous weather, I could have eliminated these because there are no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere in the state for tonight through tomorrow, and likely into Monday as well. As you can see on the breakup chart here, still quite a stretch of unknown, actually, or no, that's open, sorry. That's open here along the Tanana River. Yukon has a little bit of a partly open area showing there east of Eagle and then back into the Yukon. Otherwise, the remainder of the Yukon still pretty well locked in ice, and Kuskokwim about the same, but some, of course, these southern rivers opening up fairly well. And again, still looks like next week the breakup process will probably pick up a little bit or accelerate, but since we're sliding into May, that's kind of what you'd expect. And for fire danger, kind of lost it here on the north side of the Alaska Range, and still a patch there around Gulkana and Glen Allen, and lesser the area subsided or actually shrunk a little in the Susitna Valley and came down a little bit around the Kenai area, still a couple areas there. But again, this is fire danger for grass. Loses snow and dries out, it's dead, so it lights right up, and if there's a breeze blowing, it doesn't take much to get it out of hand. Anyway, added an area here, the Bristol Bay area zone there, and a little bit there in the Kuskokwim Delta. Otherwise, not too bad. Moving on to the satellite imagery, clear skies here, North Gulf Coast there into the Panhandle, a few isolated areas of clouds, and then we have the system here that's pushed mostly just cloudiness into the Kodiak Island area. But back in through here, there was some moisture today, anywhere from 500 to 1/10 of an inch, and that's about it. So light rain, fog, and drizzle here. And that was on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula. Chignik, I believe, or Yatarni Bay had about 1/10 of an inch in the last 12 hours, and possibly down around the Trinity Islands there, and maybe Sitkinak picked up low moisture, but that's mostly down to the south. Sunshine, southern Alaska, northward, and also some sunshine over the Pribilof Islands today. They were sitting in the clear sky zone there, a few wisps of cirrus here, and mostly clear. St. Lawrence Island up through the Bering Strait for a change. This frontal boundary through here really weakening as it slides northward, trying to push a little bit to the east but being held back to the west. High pressure over the interior. A little bit stronger system swung up just west of Shimia, and that produced rainfall the entire day, the entire night, the entire day, and winds today gusting 50 miles an hour, that with gale warnings out in the western Aleutians. And that weakens considerably. Just some clouds coming into Adak and Atka. Still some rain back to the west there, but really that front will really be weakening. You have some rain will move into Adak and possibly Atka tonight, but it'll be light and kind of intermittent throughout the day tomorrow. On the chart, there's that low center out there in the west coming up to near Shimia, and that's where the winds, again, gusting 50 miles an hour, and the continuous rainfall around the state today was concentrated. High pressure over the interior, extending up from the Gulf of Alaska, actually the northeast Pacific here, reaching into the interior and virtually covering all of interior Alaska and into the Northwest Territory. So we had clear skies over the southeast coast with sunshine and temperatures in the mid to upper 50s in some locations. Warmest spot I saw in the state was at a place called Shelter Cove down over the southern Panhandle this afternoon. Otherwise, lower to mid 50s in the Susitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula, and also in the Tanana Valley this afternoon. Not too bad there. as I mentioned, clouds here over Kodiak Island, but the rainfall back to the west and southwest, and it's not very heavy at all, with this nearly stationary frontal boundary and low pressure center that's just barely on the chart there, and a little bit of moisture westward to the eastern Aleutians, but more scattered out in that area. And then the clear skies you can see here from Kuskokwim, Togiak Bay on down into the Pueblos today, and then mid and high level clouds with some sunshine as well through the St. Lawrence Island area on up to the portion of the North Slope. A little bit of flurry condition and fog over at Kaktovik. Otherwise, the remainder of the Arctic coast mostly just seeing lower clouds. And for tonight, that low weakens, takes a track to the north. The front edges eastward, weakens as well, and losing the gale force winds with that. Appears light rain, fog, and drizzle, maybe gusts 30, 35 miles an hour, Adak and Atka, and that's about it. And stays mostly clear here along the southwest coast into the interior areas, and even a few breaks here southward toward Nikolsky maybe, and possibly in Alaska. But clouds and moisture streaming north, still streaming northwestward here, but having trouble jumping the Alaska Peninsula. So chance of rain over Kodiak Island, looks like cutting off Chiniak or Marmot Bay southward. North of there, just clouds, lose the clouds in Cook Inlet. Maybe some clouds here, Prince William Sound in the North Gulf Coast, possible fog. Off the southeast coast there, it should stay clear, light winds, clear skies over the interior. Maybe some cloudiness, possibly the Brooks Range North Slope areas, a few flurries possible for the central Arctic coast. But again, all this storminess heading northward as high pressure holds over the area. And for the day tomorrow, we'll see again the frontal boundary kind of makes a little bit of a push to the north there. And again, the low center, though, still barely onto the chart here. Same pattern, so look for a day tomorrow, much like today for the Alaska Peninsula. And kind of unsettled for Kodiak. Cloudy, damp conditions, light rain, drizzle, fog anywhere along the east side of the island down to Sitkinak. Mostly dry for Shelikof Strait. High center up here along the North Gulf Coast. Should be a partly to mostly sunny day, at least in part here for the Prince William Sound area, North Gulf Coast. You have some clouds maybe right off the coast. Panhandle, sunshine, light winds. Sunshine over just about all interior Alaska tomorrow, all the way up to the Arctic coast there as high pressure holds over the area. And again, that high will keep this storminess and low centers tracking northward and weakening as they pull north. See that low center now 993 millibars. Precipitation barely reaching Gamble, if at all there, with pretty good southerly winds. And of course, that's going to push the ice edge back to the north and melt it along the way. And another system, new front, pushes more rain and wind into the western Aleutians. Looks like a better chance of maybe some possible gale force winds, possibly there for Adak tomorrow with lighter conditions toward Chimney, but still quite wet from Atco westward. And for the day on Monday, that front continues to weaken, but holds together enough to bring a band of light rain into Nikolsky, possibly on Alaska. You're going to be right on the edge there for the Pueblos, but southeast flow finally pulling moisture down here, getting it north of the Alaska Peninsula here. So could be some areas of showers, drizzle, fog, but light amounts here. Chance of rain, St. Lawrence Island, kind of breezy through the Bering Strait, just a risk of some moisture up there, and then that kind of backs around. Could see some rain and snow, and windier conditions there for the western Arctic coast. Southwest maybe gusts 30, 35, Point Lay, back to Cape Lisburne and Point Hope. Otherwise, lighter winds, fair skies to the east, sunshine over the interior, temperatures running from anywhere 50 to maybe 60 degrees, except from the Brooks Range northward. And mildest over the eastern interior, of course. Another sunny day for the southeast coast, but overnight tomorrow night, some of that low cloud condition could get a little farther eastward. And for lows tonight down that way, upper 20s to mid 30s, and mid 30s or mid 20s to lower 30s south central Alaska, right down to the coast. 40 for Kodiak, teens, Brooks Range northward, 20s in the interior. Highs tomorrow, mid 40s for the Pueblos, lower 30s St. Lawrence Island, upper 20s to lower 30s North Slope in the Arctic coast, and 55 to 60 central upper Tanana Valley areas, 40-mile country, and 50 degrees all the way down to Bethel. 50 to 55 at the Susitna Valley. I don't think we'll see 60 at all tomorrow. Possible, though. And upper 40s to upper 50s for the Panhandle. Lows the following morning. 30s again the southeast coast. Teens to mid-20s here, North Slope, Arctic coast, much milder to the west, 33 for the low at Point Hope. Lower 30s over the southwest interior, milder with 30 to 35-ish for the lows, or actually upper 20s to mid-30s, south central Alaska, followed by highs in mostly the 50 to 60 degree range, but chillier along the Arctic coast with lower 30s for your highs.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First flying weather graphic tomorrow morning. Big area IFR out here over the Bering Sea Aleutians, up to the south side of the Alaska Peninsula and on up Kodiak Island here on the southeast side anyway. And more IFR Gulf of Alaska just off the Kenai Peninsula coast over eastward to just off the southeast coast. Mostly VFR here, southern Alaska, and could be some areas of IFR here, possibly. Not really a sure thing there south of the Berks Range, maybe better chance up there along the eastern Arctic coast. Tomorrow afternoon, that basically is gone, and VFR over all the interior, down the Panhandle, marginal right along the coastline. Same thing for the North Gulf Coast, maybe actually reaching the coastline and a little ways inland. Prince William Sound, marginal VFR, but VFR, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet to Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, more widespread IFR on the eastern shores and stays VFR in the interior, and IFR in the Bering Sea to most of the Aleutians. For Monday morning, we've got a swath of pretty widespread IFR here from the Bering Strait down to St. Matthew Island and southward, with a narrow band of marginal in between the two main areas here with more IFR off to the southwest. Pretty good again over the interior, and maybe some low stuff forming here, causing this area of lower flying conditions. Same thing up there on the central Arctic coast. And marginal VFR making some headway eastward here, but not too far into the inside waters of the Panhandle. And for Monday afternoon, that kind of pulls back off the coast, burns off due to the sun, and marginal VFR up along the North Gulf Coast, definitely across Prince William Sound, Passage Canal. Looks like some of that could get into eastern Turnagain Arm. Cook Inlet, Kenai, Anchor Point, Palmer on north will be in the VFR zone continuing through the afternoon, and maybe some marginal VFR eastern North Slope. Otherwise, lowest conditions definitely out here with marginal along the Yukon Delta coast. IFR pretty widespread for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and again along the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, and a little more coverage there on the east side of Kodiak and Fognak Islands. And for passes tomorrow, Sunday, looking not too bad, starting out possibly marginal, but becoming VFR for both Anaktuvik and Adigan. And for the Lake Clark and Merrill passes, VFR, at least for one more day. Same thing for Rainy VFR. The entire Alaska range will be VFR, and as far as Tanita, VFR there as well. Portage VFR, and Chilcoot and White, good VFR. For the freezing levels here, 2,000 to 4,000 feet across the southeast coast, and 2,000 feet here near Kodiak, that due to an upper level disturbance that's kind of lost in the flow here, lost or fell out of the main flow, so it's kind of slowly drifting around there, so a little bit cooler air aloft, and then much warmer air aloft coming up over the western Aleutians into the southwest Bering Sea, 10,000 feet. I haven't seen that level for a while for tomorrow morning. And for icing, moisture streaming northward. Bulk of the moisture will be north of the chain here. So this area, not only above 10,000 feet with those high freezing levels, but it's going to be very isolated, probably even in the light rime category there. So really not much of a threat. And this area here just grazing Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula with a chance, slight chance of some icing there above 6,000 feet. Jet stream, high pressure ridging actually from the Pacific here, northeastward with a separate center trying to form there up over the central interior, Koyukuk Valley, upper Yukon, that area. And that's keeping the jet back here to the west, all the storminess heading north-northeast, or keeping it down to the south here. This jet coming up, just barely reaching the southeast coast, but not quite. 9,000 foot winds, southeast 10 to 15 here, right up into the interior, turning southerly, much stronger though out along the coast. 25, Yukon Delta coast, 30 knots for the Seward Peninsula, 40 knots on the western Arctic coast. And big winds out here, stronger winds anyway, 40 to 50 knots here, west of Adak Island towards Shimya. 3,000 feet, same pattern, winds a little different, 30 to 40 knots here out of the south. and then falling back to 20 knots towards Shimya, 15 to 25, 40 knotters right through the Bering Strait, 45 western Arctic coast, really light winds here, 5 to 15 knots over the eastern interior. That pattern of light winds right on down the Panhandle, southeast 20 to 25 into Kodiak Island. And for turbulence, areas of a moderate chop here with those breezier conditions, Kodiak and Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, right on up to the Seward Peninsula, here the western DeLong Mountains.
On March 11, 2011, a powerful tsunami hit Japan, destroying cities and villages. As the water receded back into the ocean, it pulled what remained of buildings, cars, boats, and homes along with it. Scrap metals, plastics, and objects of all shapes and sizes either sank near the shore or floated away. In the days that followed, large masses of floating debris could easily be seen by satellite imagery and aerial photos. In the wake of this disaster, NOAA is assessing the potential impact that the debris may have on U.S. shores. So, where will this debris go, and when will it get there? To help answer those questions, scientists are using computer models to estimate the debris' path, using its starting location in the tsunami zone and historical weather and ocean conditions. The findings are that some debris could pass near or wash ashore in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands as early as this winter. Debris may also approach the west coast of the United States in 2013 and potentially circle back to the main Hawaiian Islands in 2014. But scientists caution that there are limitations to what computer models can tell us, now that the debris has moved out of satellite view. And with currents and winds in the Pacific constantly changing, there is no guarantee that the debris will stay on the predicted path. Items will sink along the way, or break up and disperse in many directions. Despite these unknowns, NOAA and its partners are collecting data, assessing possible impacts, and making preparations in case debris does wash ashore. The 2011 tsunami in Japan reminds us that the devastation that happens on land can also become a marine debris issue at sea.
Imagine all of this underwater. In a major tsunami, it could happen. In this part of Washington state, it's happened before, hundreds of years ago. Sometime in the future, it will likely happen again. But we can be ready. If a tsunami strikes, this school will provide a place for people to ride it out above the waves.
We're in Westport, Washington, and right behind me is the very first tsunami vertical evacuation center in the United States. We will now begin the tsunami evacuation.
This is an emergency. Please walk to the nearest exit.
Go.
Go to the stair tower and proceed up the stairs.
Tsunamis are a potential hazard for low-lying coastal areas. That's why many coastal communities have plans in place to get people to safety, high ground or inland, where they can be beyond the reach of a tsunami. Often there are signs showing where to go and where to gather. Most tsunamis are caused by underwater earthquakes along subduction zones, where two of Earth's plates collide and one is forced under the other. Westport and other Pacific Northwest coastal communities are especially at risk because one of these zones lies just offshore. It's called the Cascadia Subduction Zone. An earthquake here caused a tsunami in 1700 that flooded shores as far away as Japan. Experts say it's just a matter of time before it happens again. Since the subduction zone is so close, a tsunami like the one in 1700 could strike before people in some low-lying areas could get to high ground or inland. And Westport doesn't have a lot of high ground or easy routes inland.
If we get an earthquake or a tsunami, we're going to get a lot of water in the area really quickly, and we needed a place to go. So our community built this brand new school, and above our gym and cafeteria, we have a roof. And so the idea is that we'll get all of our students up, and anybody from the community who needs to get up, they can get up there as well.
Ocosta Elementary School might seem like a normal school, but look more closely. It's engineered to withstand monster waves. Tsunami vertical evacuation shelters must be able to resist the powerful forces that a tsunami brings. Hydrodynamic, buoyant, hydrostatic, and debris impact forces and strong currents. They're also designed to help people get to safety quickly.
There are 4 big staircases on each corner of the building, and each one of those staircases is 8 feet wide, and we can get the whole school evacuated in about 4.5 minutes.
Everybody should be at a 0.
On the roof of the building, there is water and food and buckets and shelters and tarps and blankets and different things so that we can be up there for 2, 3, maybe 4 days while we wait for rescue.
You can go to the top and you know you'll be safe. It feels really nice to have a special building because you feel protected.
This community decided that a tsunami evacuation center was important because they didn't have anywhere to go, and they decided to use their money to build the building. The additional cost is anywhere between 10 and 20% of the actual building cost itself, and that's really a sound investment for a lot of protection. You may be there a while, but you're safe and you're secure, and that's the most important thing.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis, not a whole lot different from yesterday, kind of in a stationary status quo until the southerly winds kick in here over the next couple of days, and then we'll see a pretty good retreat back to the north and melting, especially melting of the newer ice that formed over the last week or so. And on to coastal water forecasts, northwest 15 with 5-foot seas on the south coast, maybe 6 feet. Otherwise, really light and variable conditions on the north coast, seas 5 feet. Light northwest winds over all of the inside waters with slight seas at around maybe 2 feet or less. And then for Monday, we've got northwest 15 now along the coast, seas running 5 to 7 feet. Northwest 10, central southern inside waters, Lynn Canal, north 15. And then southeast 15 here on the north end of the coast. And for Prince William Sound, light east winds tomorrow, only 10 knots, seas 2 feet. 15-knot winds out of the east here for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Pick up to about 20 knots here as you move west. And Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay, small craft advisories out for east at 25. Cook Inlet, northeast 10 to 15. And then for Monday, still small craft advisories here for the Barren Islands, east 30, about 25 for Kamishak Bay, north to northeast 15 knots for Cook Inlet. Prince William Sound, light northerlies, and small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast, east-northeast 25 to 30 knots, seas 7 to 8 feet. And for Kodiak Island tomorrow, easterlies 25 to 30 knots, so small craft advisories there. In fact, small craft advisories in all of these zones. We've got east winds 25 here for the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay. Same thing, east at 25. And the outlook for Monday, east-southeast here for the peninsula at 25 knots with 5 to 8 foot seas. And small craft advisories continue for Bristol Bay, as well as areas southwest of Sitkinak, Kodiak Island, small craft advisories with eastern northeast winds strongest through Shelikof Strait, 30 knots with 10-foot seas. Fox Islands tomorrow, southeast or east-southeast, 15 to 20, maybe 25 knots. Southerlies 30 knots, losing the gales as that front weakens as it moves eastward, and seas running about 9 to 12 feet. And then southerly gales turn southeast the farther west you go toward Shemya. Excuse me. West winds 30 knots for Monday, and then we've got some gales back in the forecast here for areas from Kiska over to Adak and along the north side of Adak and Atka. For southerly winds there in the entire zone to 30 to 35, seas up to 15 feet. And south to southeast, 22 as high as possibly 35 knots there for the Fox Islands. And for the southwest coast tomorrow, southeast winds 30 knots, small craft advisories. Gales though for St. Matthew Island, 35 knot winds, south 25 for the Pribilofs, southeast 25 for St. Matthew Island. And the outlook for Monday, southeast 30 here, stays pretty breezy along the coast, and gales hold over St. Matthew Island and pick up to 30 knots now for the Pribilofs, all out of the southeast, 10-foot seas there, and about 5 feet in St. Lawrence Island zone, 20 knots for Norton Sound. And for the Arctic coast here, east side, light winds southwest to 10, picking up to 20 out of the south on the central coast, all the way down to Cape Beaufort. Then we've got this zone here to Cape Thompson for 25 knot winds and brisk wind advisories. And then for Monday, a little bit stronger, 30 knots, staying under gale force, and then brisk wind advisories all the way down to the Bering Strait. Brisk wind advisories, western coast here, western Arctic coast, south 25, no change on the central coast, and winds stay on the light side, 10 to 15, mostly from the south for the eastern stretch there. And for tonight, high pressure holds here, one center over the eastern interior, but not much of a gradient out here to the west till you get way out to the west. This low sliding northward, staying west of even Shemya, of St. Lawrence Island and the Pribilofs, and chance of rain continues, actually increases a little bit. Some of this moisture sneaking northward there into Kodiak Island. And for tomorrow, a little bit better chance of rain on the east side of Kodiak, light rain at times, fog, possible drizzle, no change for the Alaska Peninsula, sunshine, interior areas right on down the southeast coast, and storminess moving from south to northeast a little bit, mostly to the north, keeps the storminess and wet weather way out to the west. And then for Monday, some of that kind of sneaks over the top here, increases the winds western Arctic coast, again to the brisk wind advisory levels with a chance of moisture. Kind of breezy and wet in the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Sunshine, interior Alaska, again on down the southeast coast, but a better chance of rain now for Kodiak Island in toward Monaco.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.